The envelope didn't thump. It didn't rustle or announce itself with urgency. It simply appeared. A quiet, cream-colored rectangle tucked between grocery coupons and unpaid electric bills. Sen might have missed it if the sunlight hadn't caught the shimmer of the gold-embossed lettering. She stared at it like it had fangs, like it might bite her, or worse, like it might pretend to love her. She picked it up with hesitant fingers as if it were a relic from a life she'd buried. The paper was thick, the kind that tries too hard to look expensive. Her name stared back at her in Mai's signature perfect cursive, so elegant it almost disguised the violence that came with it. Sen Devo. No warmth, no "we've missed you," no "hope you're well." Just a name, isolated and exposed like it had been cut out from a family photo. Her breath caught, and for a second she wondered, could this be real? Could they actually want her back? But another voice in her head, older, sharper, sliced through the thought. No, they just want something. It had been 6 months. 6 months of silence that screamed louder than any insult. No apologies, no explanations, just distance, deliberate and clean. Sen stood there in the middle of her tiny kitchen, the cheap linoleum cold beneath her bare feet, a chipped coffee mug half full beside her. Sunlight streamed in through the cracked blinds, drawing long slashes of light across the floor, like bars on a cell. She hadn't expected contact. She'd already accepted that they had erased her. She had done the grieving. She had lit candles in her own way, alone with silence and stubbornness. And now this, a Thanksgiving invitation, handwritten, in ink that smelled like guilt wrapped in cinnamon. It read, "Dear Sen, we hope you'll join us for a special Thanksgiving gathering. 3 p.m. Family home. Love, Millis." Love, she whispered, her mouth twisting bitterly, as if that word hadn't already been weaponized in their house. Her eyes scanned the words again. But all she could feel was the echo of the last time she was there. Mace screaming about her refusal to fund a sinking fashion brand, Logan slamming a glass down, her mother standing in the hallway like a silent judge, her father silent but smirking. Shen hadn't walked out. She'd fled. Now they were inviting her back, like nothing had happened, like her absence was just a phase. But something in her chest stirred. Not forgiveness, not even hope, just a pulse. A need to know. Were they reaching out to heal, or just to wound again, this time with better timing? She stood there for a long while, letter trembling slightly in her hand. Outside, a dog barked. The radiator hissed. Somewhere, a neighbor's television hummed with the sound of canned laughter. But inside Sen's kitchen, only one sound remained, the thrum of her heart, steady but suspicious. She looked down again, sighed, and said aloud, "If this is a trap, I'm bringing matches." Then she picked up the letter opener and sliced it clean. Sen didn't need to close her eyes to remember. Some memories don't wait for permission. They bloom like bruises, slow, silent, and stubborn. It wasn't always loud. No slammed doors, no shouting matches, just silence, just being left out. The first time it happened, she was 7. Family photo day, matching sweaters, forced smiles. Sen wore green. The others were cream. Her mother said, "Well, we can crop it later." Later became always. In every framed photo on the hallway wall, Sen was either cropped out, standing too far to the left, or, worst of all, replaced entirely. One year, she wasn't even told the photo shoot was happening. When she saw the canvas print hanging near the dining room, she asked, "Why wasn't I there?" Melza didn't even look up from her phone. "You were at debate camp, remember, Jill? Not everything's about you." Another year, the holiday card came addressed only to the Devo 4. Sen read it again and again. 4, not 5. They counted the dog, but not her. She learned to swallow hurt like medicine. Bitter, necessary, and done in silence. The comments didn't help. Sen's just sensitive. Sen always takes things too seriously. Sen, stop making everything about you. They didn't hit her with hands. They used implication. They used omission. They used tone. And somehow that hurt more. Sen grew up believing invisibility was her role. She stopped raising her hand in class, stopped inviting friends over, stopped asking for birthday cakes. She became the daughter who didn't ask, didn't argue, didn't need. Until she did. Until silence turned from a survival tactic into a weapon. The dress hadn't moved in months. It hung in the back of her closet like a memory no one wanted to face, a silent witness to a version of herself she almost abandoned. Red, crimson really, sleek, sharp, and unapologetic. The same one her mother once looked at and scoffed, "You look like a politician's wife trying too hard." Sen had almost given it away once. Almost. But something about it had always felt defiant, a fabric middle finger sewn into every seam. So when she reached for it that morning, hands steady, heart quiet, it wasn't about style, it was armor. She twisted her hair into a low knot, pinned it without flourish, and slipped into the dress like a warrior into worn leather. She didn't wear perfume. She didn't check the mirror twice. This wasn't about presentation. This was about presence. Sen packed lightly, one overnight bag, just in case. She boarded the 9:05 Northeast Regional with nothing but silence in her ears and battle in her bones. The train hummed like a prelude. The outside world passed in a blur of gray trees and frostbitten towns. Across from her, a woman in business clothes cried quietly into a crumpled Starbucks napkin. Sen didn't ask. Pain doesn't always need conversation. Sometimes it just needs company. When the train pulled into the station, the sky was pale and cold. New Jersey looked just as she remembered it, manicured, composed, and completely blind to what lay beneath. Sen took one breath, then stepped off the train like someone walking toward a funeral no one knew was coming. She didn't know this dinner would end with a slap heard around the world. The door opened before she even knocked, not by family, by staff. A young man in a black vest and white shirt held a tablet like it was a guest list at a country club. "Name, please?" he asked without a flicker of recognition. Sen didn't flinch. "Sen Devo," she said it flat. No smile, no explanation. He tapped the screen, nodded, and stepped aside. No welcome hug, no "so glad you came," just protocol. She stepped into the foyer and was immediately hit by the scent of rosemary citrus glaze and furniture polish. It smelled familiar, almost safe. Almost. Then she saw it, a seating chart taped to the cabinet beside the buffet. Names written in delicate calligraphy. Mace, Logan, Mom, Dad, Aunt Terry, even someone named Guest far left. But her name? Nowhere. Her seat wasn't labeled Sin. It was labeled Guest, not family, not even a name. Her pulse didn't race. It simply tightened, like a muscle remembering trauma. She handed her coat to a housekeeper, not a sibling, not even a cousin, and walked deliberately into the dining room. No one looked up. No one stood. No one said her name. Only me turned arms wide like a stage actress greeting a reluctant audience. "Oh, look who showed up," she announced, loud enough for the room to pause, but not long enough to care. A few chuckled politely. Logan grabbed a deviled egg and walked right past Sen without a glance. Dad raised his glass from the armchair and nodded, not in warmth, but as if she were an employee who arrived late to a meeting. Sen walked slowly to the only empty chair, tucked far from the fireplace, behind the buffet table, as if it had been left there for someone who wasn't supposed to matter. The silverware clinked, the wine flowed, the laughter was too loud for how little was actually funny. Sen sat perfectly still, hands folded, eyes quiet, spine straight as a blade. She didn't eat much, didn't speak, didn't try to join conversations about Logan's promotion or Mice's wedding cake tasting. She just existed, like a warning in red. Then, a sound. Clink. A fork tapped against a wine glass. Once, twice, a third time. Clink, clink, clink. The room fell quiet. Her mother stood up. Elegant, perfect posture, the kind of composed cruelty only years of practice could teach. She raised her glass, smiled like a hostess, but her eyes locked on Sen with the precision of a sniper. "Before we move on to dessert," she began, "I'd like to say a few words." A few words. That's all it took to set fire to the entire room. Her voice was smooth, like velvet dipped in acid. She talked about family tradition and earning your place at the table. She didn't use Sen's name. She didn't have to. The glances gave it away. The sideways smirks, the clenched forks, the heat in Sen's chest. "Some daughters forget," her mother said lightly, "that humility is a virtue, that success means nothing if you wear arrogance like perfume." A few chuckles. Logan snorted. Mi stared into her wine. Sen sat frozen. Her palms were cold, but her core burned. Then, a pause. A silence so thick you could taste the tension on your tongue. And then it happened. Sen stood up, slowly, not to fight, not to defend, just to leave. She slid her napkin onto the plate, took 2 steps back, crack! A hand against her face, hard, immediate, public. Gasps exploded around the table. Sen staggered, stunned. It took a moment to realize her mother had slapped her, eyes wide, not with regret, but with satisfaction. Sen's wine glass slipped from her hand, shattered on marble. Her father didn't look up. He just muttered, "Serves you right." She didn't flinch, not when her cheek lit up in fire, not when the glass shattered, not even when 50 pairs of eyes turned to witness her humiliation, like it was theater. She stood there, frozen, burning, but not broken. Her mother's hand still hovered in the air, like it wanted to do it again, like it was proud. Gasps echoed, chairs creaked, but no one moved. Sen didn't meet anyone's gaze. She didn't need to. She could feel their judgment, like heat off a stove, sticky, suffocating, and familiar. But then, a voice, calm, flat, detached. "Serves you right." Her father, still seated, didn't even look up, didn't even blink. 4 words. That was all it took. Sen blinked once. Then something inside her shifted, like glass cracking deep inside a wall, the kind of break that doesn't show until the whole house collapses. She didn't cry, didn't scream, didn't throw a single word back. She just walked, past the buffet, past the fireplace, past the hallway lined with family portraits that conveniently stopped at 2016. She picked up her coat, didn't put it on, opened the door, stepped into the cold November air. And then, only then, did she let herself breathe. Not because she was sad, not because she was hurt, but because she knew something just ended and something else just began. She didn't cry. She called 3 people, and the family would never recover. She didn't slam the door when she got home. She didn't scream. She didn't even sit down. She dropped her coat, rolled up her sleeves, and picked up her phone. The first number on her list had been saved for years. Not under lawyer, not under help, just Dorian. She tapped the call icon with surgical precision. It rang once, then twice. "I've been expecting your call," he said. Sen didn't smile, didn't greet. She only said, "It's time." There was a pause, and then the shift. The low rustle of papers, the click of a keyboard, the sound of war beginning in the quiet. "You want full activation? Full. Trust. Freeze. Quiet. Immediate." He understood. He always understood. 2 years ago, during her mother's abdominal surgery, Sen had returned home to take care of her. While her mother slept, Sen had filed her pills, reheated soup, and gathered signatures. Her mother too weak to read the forms, Sen too calm to tremble. A temporary financial power of attorney signed and notarized, filed and forgotten. Until now, she never revoked it, Dorian confirmed, and your father never reviewed the amendment. We filed it through your mother's foundation under the medical clause. You're still the legal gatekeeper. Sen exhaled, then freeze it all. Done. No emotion, no victory dance, just cold clinical justice. Within 30 minutes, the trust that fueled their lifestyle, the summer homes, the designer grants, the fake philanthropy, was frozen. A machine they thought they owned was now locked from the inside by the girl they once erased. The second call was to Miranda. No greetings. No small talk. Just urgency. I just sent you something, Sen said. It's time. Within seconds, the files began uploading. Dozens of photos taken over 2 years. Ledger entries, bank transfers, checks written in shaky penmanship. Sloppy, greedy, obvious. Miranda didn't ask questions. She never did. She was the kind of woman who could turn a restaurant receipt into a timeline of crime. I see them, she murmured through the line, already typing. That's the charity account. Yes, look closely at the vendor list. Sen opened her own copy and highlighted 3 names. One of them isn't real. Miranda paused, clicked, cross-referenced. I've seen this before, she whispered. Shell companies used to clean dirty money through legitimate channels. Sen nodded to no one. They used the foundation, she said quietly, to fund Mace's brand and Logan's crypto collapse. It's all in there. And under your name, Sen's breath caught. Most of the wires were filed as internal family operations. They used me to keep scrutiny away. Miranda let out a slow, controlled exhale. Then we document everything. Dates, amounts, transaction IDs. I want to bury them in their own paper trail. Sen closed her laptop. Her heart was calm. Her fury wasn't loud. It was focused. The girl they erased had receipts. The third call didn't need an introduction. Roe didn't do small talk. Roe didn't do sympathy. Roe did law. It's me, Sen said. It's time to file. Roe was already typing. Sen slid a folder across her screen. Encrypted, time-stamped, color-coded. Inside, the EIN of the family's charity trust, transaction patterns, red flags, and one signature that didn't belong hers. They forged my name, she said, on at least 7 federal documents. Roe didn't gasp. She didn't need to. This isn't just civil, she murmured. This is criminal. Within minutes, the paperwork for a federal subpoena was generated. Roe sent it to her DOJ contact. Do you want this to stay quiet? Sen paused, then spoke slowly. No, I want it legal. I want it on record. I want them served. Roe nodded once. In the eyes of the law, Sen wasn't angry. She wasn't emotional. She was a primary whistleblower in a multi-million-dollar fraud case. By the end of the night, a subpoena was filed, a charity was flagged, and an entire family stood at the edge of exposure. But the worst betrayal wasn't financial. It was blood. It was name. It was family. The next morning, a knock came at 9:06 a.m. Sen opened the door to a woman in her 60s, coat zipped to her throat, eyes brimming with something between fear and duty. You don't know me, but I worked with your Aunt Cecile. Sen tensed. She hadn't heard that name in over 5 years, not since the funeral that her family had conveniently forgotten to invite her to. The woman handed her a thick sealed envelope. No return address, no sender, just one word handwritten on the back. Truth. Inside, a single USB thumb drive, a sticky note. She told me to give this to you, if they ever turned on you. I guess it's time. Sen locked the door, plugged in the drive, and waited. It took 2 seconds to load. And then she heard it. Recording, April 17th, 2:14 p.m. Cecile's voice. You can't be serious using Sen's name to register the offshore account. Logan, It's clean. She's clean. That's the whole point. Her mother, we'll handle the paperwork. She signs what we tell her to. She owes us that much. Her father, coldly, Sen's always been too honest. That's why she'll never suspect a thing. Sen couldn't breathe. Her own parents, her own brother. Not just manipulating her, but using her name to commit federal fraud. Knowingly, willingly. Aunt Cecile had recorded them. Maybe she had always known. Maybe that's why she died under unclear circumstances. Sen played the clip again, and again. Every word hit like a hammer, every silence a scream. She copied the file, sent it to Roe, then backed it up in 3 places. She had proof now, but what she didn't know was someone else knew she had it too. The hardest part wasn't hearing her father lie, or her mother manipulate, or Logan laugh while drawing her into fraud. The hardest part was hearing her own voice. Recording April 5th, 11:06 a.m., Sen cheerfully, "Sure, I can sign it. If it helps Mom's charity, I'm all for it." Mother off mic whispering, "Told you, she's too noble, she won't ask questions." Father grunting, "Let her be useful for once." It wasn't just betrayal, it was strategy. They didn't cut her off because she disappointed them. They cut her off after she served her purpose. Sen leaned back in her chair, hands trembling, teeth clenched. This wasn't a misunderstanding. This wasn't a fallout. This was premeditated exploitation. They knew she'd never question charity forms. They knew she'd sign anything with a smile. They knew she'd want to be helpful because they raised her to feel like she never was. Now she understood. She was never the problem. She was the cover. And they were still watching her, not out of love, but out of fear. It wasn't the voice that made Sen cry. It was the fact that Cecile had tried to warn her, tried to reach her. Recording April 8th, Cecile's journal entry read aloud, "I see what they're doing to Sen. I tried to speak up, but when I did, my room was emptied, my office reassigned. My name vanished from the family newsletter like I was a mistake." Sen's breath caught. She had thought Cecile had left the family, but now she knew Cecile had been erased, blacklisted, banished, buried beneath family reputation, all because she dared to stand beside the only daughter who never schemed. Sen's hands clenched. She remembered the last lasagna Cecile ever made. Warm, layered, safe. The kind of safe Sen never felt again after she disappeared. Now, Cecile's voice had come back from fireproof ink and encrypted files. Sen whispered to the empty room, "I heard you, Dee. I hear you now." And she vowed she would not go quietly. They erased Cecile, but Cecile left her voice in fireproof ink, and Sen was ready to read it aloud. They thought they could flip the script. After Sen froze the trust, the Devo family filed a countersuit, accusing her of emotional instability, of lashing out, of delusions of persecution. They hired a lawyer who smiled too much and wore cufflinks like he was on cable TV. "Your Honor," he said smoothly, "Miss Devo has a history of overreaction, documented incidents of dramatic exits, and questionable mental stability." The courtroom didn't gasp. It went silent. Then Sen stood. No anger, no tears, just a quiet voice and a flash drive in her hand. "With all due respect," she said, "I don't have a history of being unstable. I have a history of being unheard." She handed the flash drive to the bailiff. Inside emails, audio logs, handwritten memos, proof of how the Devo family used her name in shell companies, forged her signature, and discarded her like trash the moment she served her purpose. The judge didn't flinch, didn't blink. He simply turned to the family's lawyer and said, "You should have done your homework." The courtroom was cold, but Sen was colder. The judge leaned back. We'll now play Exhibit D audio file, dated March 14th, provided by Sen Devo's estate. The courtroom hushed. Then, click. Logan's voice clear and arrogant. She signs whatever's on her desk. She doesn't even read it. Mother's voice sharper. That's why we use her name. The charities, the offshore transfers, she never questions. She just obeys. Father chuckling low. Sen's too noble, too proud. She'll never sue. She won't even look. Just keep her out of the loop and out of the way. Silence. Not dramatic, not angry, just stunned. Logan looked like the blood drained out of his face. Their mother reached for a glass of water with shaking hands. Their father stared at the floor. The judge turned to the family lawyer. Do you wish to continue your argument that Miss Devo is delusional? No answer, only breathless stillness. Sen didn't smirk, didn't smile. She just looked straight ahead and whispered only to herself, You used my name, but not my silence. This wasn't just a betrayal. It was a conspiracy recorded in their own voices. The gavel struck once. Motion to lift the freeze denied. The room didn't erupt. It exhaled like an entire system deflating under the weight of its own lies. All financial records and exhibits, the judge continued, are hereby referred to the Federal Bureau of Investigation. And just like that, the Devo legacy, generations of carefully polished illusion, began to burn. Their lawyers scrambled, whispering furiously. Logan tried to object, but his voice cracked. Mother clutched father's hand tight. Sen didn't gloat. She just stood, spine straight, voice steady. Mother spat through gritted teeth. You think you've won? Sen replied, soft but cold. No, I think I've begun. Because this wasn't revenge, it was reclamation, of voice, of name, of power. The courtroom emptied, papers rustled, eyes avoided hers. But justice didn't feel sweet, not yet. Because while the system now had the case, the real truth was still buried under silence, shame, and the ghost of one woman who died knowing too much. It arrived on a rainy Thursday. No return address, no logo, just a heavy, cream-colored envelope, certified and hand-signed. Sen almost didn't open it. She thought it was legal spam or, worse, a new lawsuit. But the handwriting stopped her. She knew it instantly. Grandpa Harold. Steady, careful penmanship, slightly slanted left. Her fingers trembled as she opened the seal. Inside, a letter. 2 pages thick, paper aged but clean. And tucked between them an old Polaroid. Sen and her grandfather on the porch swing. She was 8. He held a mug of coffee and her tiny hand at once. The letter began, To my granddaughter Sen. If you're reading this, then the house in Vermont is now yours. She gasped, but kept reading. I watched how they treated you, how they pushed you aside like you were some flaw in their perfect canvas. But I saw you, and I left this not just because I love you, but because I believe you're the only one in this family who would never sell the truth for comfort. Tears blurred the rest. He had seen her pain. He had documented it. And in this small, ink-stained moment, Sen felt more validated than by any courtroom victory. But it wasn't just a letter. It was the key to something far more powerful than money, legacy chosen, not inherited. The thumb drive was taped behind the second page of the letter. A tiny note scribbled in her grandfather's handwriting read, When you're ready, press play. I trust you'll know what to do. Sen clicked it open. A grainy video. The porch of the Vermont cabin, her grandfather in a worn flannel shirt seated beside a legal notary. The date stamp, 6 years ago. This is Harold Devo, he began, and I'm of sound mind and body. I hereby transfer all assets associated with the Vermont estate, land, cabin, timber rights, water access, and the business accounts tied to it to my granddaughter, Seneca Devo. He glanced at the camera, eyes firm. No member of the Devo family, including my children, shall have access to these holdings. This trust is protected by an irrevocable clause. It is not for sale. It is not for negotiation. It is for her because she saw what others refused to. The video ended. Sen sat frozen. All this time, while her family waged war over image, prestige, and manipulation, her grandfather had been building a fortress of truth for her, quietly, legally, lovingly. It wasn't just an inheritance. It was a vote of belief, one she never asked for, but always needed. But even fortresses come with ghosts, and Sen was about to face the one person who had watched her suffer and said nothing. Sen stood at the edge of the Vermont property. Morning mist still clung to the trees. Birdsong echoed from somewhere behind the cabin. For once, her hands weren't clenched, not in rage, not in defense, just still. She walked the perimeter slowly, boots sinking into moss and memory. This wasn't just land, it was recognition. A man who had once changed her diapers now handed her a legacy not out of guilt, but belief. And with that belief came a truth. She no longer needed apologies from the people who hurt her. She needed to build something that outlived their control, not to prove she was better, but to prove they were wrong about her every time they dismissed her, silenced her, used her. The anger, it had done its job. It had protected her, fueled her. But now, it couldn't be the foundation. Sen opened her laptop. New file. New name. New mission. She wasn't rebuilding what they tore down. She was building what they never had the courage to dream of. But before she could build something true, she had to tear down what they built on lies. And the demolition would begin with a letter. It began at 6:02 a.m. The mansion gates creaked open, not from a chauffeur, but from the black SUVs that rolled in without warning. Knock, knock, 2 knocks. Calm, cold, commanding. SBI, open the door. Inside the Devo estate, chaos bloomed like wildfire. Mrs. Devo screamed at the intercom. Mr. Devo tried to call the family lawyer. Logan, still shirtless, ran down the stairs holding a Rolex and a half-packed duffel bag. But it was too late. Teams from the FBI, IRS, and the Department of Justice entered with warrants. The house was officially a federal crime scene. In the grand foyer, handwritten ledgers, password-protected flash drives, a safe behind a fake Monet. Every detail Sen and Miranda had uncovered was now being verified in real time. One agent opened a kitchen drawer. Inside, a bank statement from a Liechtenstein account with Seneca's name forged. Again. This was never about charity, an agent muttered. It was about laundering, and they got cocky. Upstairs, a locked drawer contained something no one expected, a second thumb drive, and a note addressed, "To the daughter we silenced." Sen didn't expect a knock that night. Not after the raid, not after the headlines. But there it was, a soft tap. Not federal, just familiar. She opened the door. Miss, holding a lasagna dish, foil still steaming, hands trembling just slightly. Neither spoke. Not yet. Sen stepped aside, and Miss entered like a ghost visiting her own past. They sat at the kitchen counter, silent. Then one fork, then another. The first bite hit like a memory. Sen swallowed hard. "You used Mom's old recipe." Miss shook her head. "No, I used yours, from that time we tried to cook for Marble's birthday." Sen laughed, the kind that starts in the chest but ends in the eyes. Marble the fox. The one-eared stuffed animal fox they both claimed to hate, but secretly tucked into bed for 10 years straight. They remembered his little scarf, his stitched eye, the way he always sat between them when they fought. Miss stirred her fork. "I should have stood up back then, when they turned on you." Sen didn't respond right away. "We were kids. They made us choose. You didn't fail me. They failed us." The silence that followed wasn't heavy. It was healing. Miss reached into her coat, pulled out a notarized letter, and said, "I'm ready to testify to everything." The estate in Vermont wasn't a castle. It was quiet, modest, but it sat on land soaked in seasons and silence, a place where stories could breathe again. Sen didn't turn it into a retreat for herself. She turned it into a haven for women like her, women who had been erased by their own families, women who were called liars, troublemakers, or too emotional, women who were left out of the will, the photo, the room. She called it the ink that wouldn't burn. Miss was there from day one, not in headlines, not on the board of directors, but with lasagna in the kitchen, with quiet hugs for women arriving in tears. She didn't need a plaque. She just needed to know she'd helped stop the cycle. No press releases, no ribbon cuttings, just whispers of healing and rooms where silence no longer hurt. And when one woman asked Sen why she never took revenge, Sen smiled and said, "I didn't break the family. I just stopped letting it break me." Not all families are safe. Not all silence is peace. And not all forgiveness means going back. Sometimes the bravest thing you can do is walk away from the people who use love as a weapon and instead choose to build something better from the ashes. Sen's story reminds us you don't have to scream to be powerful. You don't have to be loud to be right. You don't need revenge to get justice. All you need is the courage to choose yourself. On this channel, we tell stories that speak for the silenced, the forgotten, and the quietly powerful. And if you believe in justice without vengeance, if you believe in healing without asking permission, then this is your home. Subscribe now, because sometimes the stories that heal are the ones that burn first.